So welcome to Transform Gov, the Digital Government podcast, and it's part of the Ireland eGovernment Awards and the Leadership Summit. And it's brought to you in association with Accenture. And my name is Maeve Neefsey. So my guest today is Marianne Cassidy from DPER. And Marianne is playing a key role in mapping out how our public services will be delivered over the next decade. In fact, this is a very timely interview because they're just about to update the Digital Public Service Plan to 2030, which is about to go to government. And the plan covers the implementation of integrated user-centric journeys, which means moving from siloed services to life events. Don't worry, we'll learn all more about this. So things like having a baby or finding social housing become a joined-up journey. So essentially, this is all about rewriting how government services are delivered, which is, of course, relevant to everyone, from policymakers through to suppliers. So Marianne, you're very welcome to Transform Gov.
Thank you, Maeve. Good afternoon.
And good afternoon to you too. So before we get into the plan, I have to ask you, because you have a slight different accent, I have to ask you how you landed here, because you know, you've built a career in the public sector here, and you've touched probably every aspect of the public service and our lives. And somewhere in between all of that, you've had 2 sets of twins, which must be some achievement. So how did you end up coming to where you are right now? And you know, you have a huge commitment, obviously, to public service. So where did that come from?
Well, Maeve, lightning does strike twice in terms of having 2 sets of twins. So I came here in 98 to do a master's in social policy. I was due to go back to France. I studied in Paris for 5 years beforehand, and I was going to take the public sector exam for the ENA at the time, but my English wasn't great. So I thought I'll spend a year and do a master's. And I met my husband, and that was it. 25 years later, I'm still here.
Okay, so that happens to so many people. You're not the only one. But anyway, tell us a little bit, I suppose, pull right back up to the whole transformation mandate. So, you know, so we kind of get a picture for where the digital aspect fits into that. So what is the mandate? What does it mean?
Okay, so you may have heard of Better Public Services. This is the transformation strategy for the Irish public service to 2030. It has the vision of Better Public Services is integrated service delivery that meet the needs and improve the lives of the people of Ireland. And that's really the key vision that we're all trying to achieve, capturing this public sector value and the work that we're, the North Star of what we're trying to do. There are 3 pillars of reform: the digital and innovation at scale pillar, of which the initiative we're going to speak about, like the digital public service plan, the life event approach to redesigning public services, and the responsible AI guideline are some key flagship around that pillar. And I know you had my colleague Barry Larry here talking to you about what the OGCIO does to support. So we would be working very closely with Barry and his team on that. The second pillar is around workforce of the future, because obviously if you redesign public services, you need to think of the new skill you require, the people that you need to deliver those services, make sure that that they're skilled. So one of the flagship is to support the deployment of the Institute of Public Administration as a center of excellence for public service skill development. Yes. Other initiatives is around HR progressive policy to make sure that we keep the people through things like the domestic violence policy, the menopause policy, and also initiative like the apprenticeship and the returner pathways to make sure that the people that we have reflect the people we serve.
Okay, so that's representation of different parts of society in the development of the transformation.
And creating new pathways for people that may not usually have had the opportunity to take a public sector career to access those. So apprenticeship, career returner, pathways for people that have additional needs or disability, and making sure that those are existing and supported. And then the third pillar of transformation is around data and evidence inform policies and services designed with and for our people. And some of the key action here is the new public sector data strategy, linked very much around the whole AI agenda. You can't have AI without a good data infrastructure and supporting the public sector to have a coherent data strategy, but also the guiding principle for designing public services and the action plan on the design of public services that will support the life event approach. So making sure we have the skill, the commitment to really design with the end users and make sure we design the right thing and design things right.
So Marianne, is that very different, do you think, to what was there before? I mean, you know, on a policy level, was there a, I don't know, psychological shift in terms of our thinking about how we were delivering services, do you think?
There was definitely the reform agenda from our department was born of the financial crisis. So when things didn't go right and public service had to shrink, which was the reality in 2011, 2012, 13, 14, the first reform agenda was very much about government effectiveness.
There was a whole thing of doing more with less. I remember.
Exactly, yeah. So that was really the driving impetus behind the public sector reform. So civil service renewal plan, our public services were very much turned on doing more with less. Here, the emphasis is very much on service improvement. How can we make the services that we do deliver better, more coordinated, simpler? We have the huge opportunity in terms of digital tools that were not there, 5, 4, 2 years ago. So how do we make sure that we use those digital tools to reimagine public service in a way that's much, much more user-centered?
Okay, so I mean, the user-centered piece is really interesting, and I think it probably leads us straight into your preparation now for the new public service plan to 2030. So if someone was hearing about this for the first time ever, what are you trying to achieve? What's the point of it?
Well, you in your podcast, you have a lot of the public sector transformer that come in and explain what they're doing in their sectors or organization to really make their own service better. And that's a really important. That's what will make the difference to people. What the digital public service plan is trying to do is to coordinate those efforts with the user at the center of it. So we all have had commitment for some time about 100% of digital public service online, 90% consumed online. And what the public service plan is looking is what are all those services? So you had our colleague Sab Khan last week talking about with the LGMA, talking about how they look at their service catalogue, how they pull that down to what are the key services, what could be built to share. And essentially, the digital public service plan is doing something similar, but at the scale of government and looking at specific life event that the users.
What's life event? It's just I know it's a term used again and again. I think it's worth saying. What is it?
A life event is one of the key moments of someone's life. So, baby is born, or in my case, 4. A loved one pass away, and what the person has to do when interacting with government to let government know that this event has happened, but also to avail of services. At the moment,
before we get into where we are, why is it a game changer? What is it? What is it going to mean?
For someone, it would mean a much improved user experience. So at the moment, if you have had the unfortunate, if you have had the bereavement, you know that you have to go and do a lot of work to tell government, my loved one has passed away, and the system is a little bit clunky. You have to notify the income support people. You have to notify the nursing home, you may have to the local register, the bank. So you have a lot of steps to do at a time that can be very difficult for you.
I suppose the perception in terms of, there is a philosophical shift, isn't there, in terms of the public service? Because I think the old way we looked at the public service was a way that was almost impenetrable. And I think from what we talked about earlier, that shift towards looking at the life events from the user's perspective,
yes,
that's a big change, isn't it? In terms of how you design services around the user rather than around the system.
Exactly.
Okay. And what drove that? I mean, how did you kind of say, well, look, we got to change it?
Well, I think there's a realization, but there are two things. First, as I said, the transformation strategy is about that integrated user experience. So, and also all the public servants have realized that, they're only part of whatever solution they're trying to implement. And there's a big drive towards, collaboration, trying to get more out of the technologies that are available. So there's a climate of opportunities as well in terms of when we look at delivering the best service, we are never part, as an individual organization, we're never the whole of the solution. So
no man is an island, right, in public service.
Exactly.
Or woman.
So there is... there's always been that drive, but I think what we have now is the space and the capacity to deliver on that drive, both in terms of the technological capacity, but also we're in a better situation that we were in 10 years ago, financially, fiscally. So there is the possibility to look at government effectiveness in a way that look at big ticket item like maintaining trust from the public, social cohesion. Those are the impetus for change. The drivers of trust, and we work very closely with the OECD on that, are around responsiveness, are around reliability, integrity, openness, fairness. And again, that kind of looking at user-centric design is a very key way to get people into the conversation, the end users, to get their sense of how they experience government, but also the service provider to say, well, what are the things that I do that I could do a little bit differently to help you in what you're trying to do?
And it's funny because the fundamentals of a happy democracy or any sort of state is the fact that people are listened to, that they feel that the service reflects what their needs are. So there's a huge cohesion and long-term stability that is created through digital services as well, really, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's key to trust. And we are very good in Ireland on trust. We're one of the most trusted public administration in the OECD, and that's because people are all trying to do their best, and all this plan is trying to do is to create a platform for people to have conversation and coordinate effort. And that's what the digital public service plan that's going to go to government is designed to do.
Yes, very good. I mean, brilliant. And in terms of prioritising, I mean, it must be very hard to decide what's going to go first. What are we going to focus on? How do you actually set priorities?
Well, we went to prioritization through different way. We had a big public consultation, and we asked the public what's important to you, and then we had a long list of life events. By the way, I should have said internationally that movement towards redesigning around life event is we're not unique in that. There's quite a few of us doing it. Mm-hmm. Ireland has invested in the design capability more than others, so we're well positioned.
Who are the leaders in it, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, Estonia is always quoted.
Starting from ground zero,
absolutely.
Right?
I mean, when you look at the services they provide, it is the epitome of really end-user design services. So we learn from a lot from our colleague from Estonia. They started their journey slightly different from us. They didn't have any legacy ICT systems, so built from scratch. So we are trying to learn from others, like our colleague in the UK or US or New Zealand that have had ICT services and public service that's a bit more mature to see how they pivot that towards that kind of life event journey.
Okay.
In terms of prioritization, we worked across all the public sector bodies and departments to say what are the services, what are your plan in terms of digitization, what are those key services and business process that you're planning to put online, and then also looking at the consultation with the public, how they link to a specific life event. So how do they link to probate, for example, in the death of a loved one life event, or birth, the registration of a child, or vaccination, or getting school places, and try to see the individual part of the services, how they link to life event. Look at the maturity of each of those services, look at what people want to have first, and we determining the prioritization based on that.
Okay.
So we've done already a lot of design work around births, driving and owning a vehicle, becoming a student, the death of a loved one, and accessing social housing. And what we do on those is go to a number of end users, see, well, how was it? You know, you left school, you went into further education. What information did you need? What are the steps that worked well? What are the steps that didn't work well? And often in those life events, you don't know what you don't know until you've gone through.
Yes.
So it's benefiting from the experience of what people have found difficult, and try to change that. So the first step on the designing the public services is to look at the user experience. We do a concept report. I have one of my colleagues is a lead designer.
I think that you might just be skipping over that because that's really hard. I mean, just in terms of the user's needs, the report around that. So we should talk about the detail behind that. But I have to take a very quick break first. We're going to just pause for a message from our sponsor, our partner, and we'll be back in a moment.
Through the power of cloud, data and AI, Accenture is helping the public sector by blending human ingenuity, technology and a delivery-focused culture to turn their ambitions into action. Be ready for any challenge by adopting a continuous reinvention mindset to deliver human-centric services that adapt and grow with your needs. Contact the team at Accenture to find out more.
Okay, so we were just beginning to talk there about the process, really, behind mapping out a life journey or an event. So you were saying that you do a report first, is it, on the user needs? Is that correct?
Yeah. So if I give you an example, we work very closely with the LGMA and the Department of Housing last year around accessing social housing particularly. There's 111,000 applications that are reviewed every year across all the local authorities. So the first thing was to go to some of those people that had a housing need or were in social housing or HAP and understand, you know, how was their journey in accessing social house, and what
steps did they have to go
what
through?
step they had to
Was
take,
it bad?
what information they needed at what point, and really get behind through those conversations, get behind, you know, the process the way they have experienced it. That gave us a concept report of what it's like to access social housing. From there, we go with a number of local authorities, with the LGMA, with the Department of Housing, and get some of their frontline worker, some of their policy makers to really understand the process from their perspective. You know, when that social housing application lands, what do they do with it? What are the steps behind the scene, the one that are not seen? What is the information they need? Who they contact in relation to that information? What are the things that are a little bit difficult for them from their perspective? And then the reason why some of those steps are here, you know, and the origin.
Some steps that just evolved over time, and maybe the reason for them is no longer valid.
Exactly.
But unless you re-examine them, you're not going to be able to see that.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the digital transformation bit. It's the re-engineering of the services. And what we found, and I'm sure your colleague, our colleague Sab, Gab will have mentioned some of this, is that when you have those conversations, even having look at what the user experience and having the frontline worker saying, well, I'm doing this because that's how it's always been done. We find that the process starts changing in itself, because some steps might not be necessary anymore, but that give an opportunity and a forum to re-question them. And also some steps can be simplified by the fact that, the Department of Social Protection said, well, actually, you don't need to get the end user.
Give us that. Yeah.
You could just get the end user to authorize, that data to be given from us directly, so that avoid them having to their interior office, get a piece of paper and give it to you. So already in the process of understanding the as is, there is through the conversation, we know that changes start to happen.
And I presume that in terms of the research or the conversation you're having with the end user, there's ideas coming through that you wouldn't have thought of. So they're adding value.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then on the other side, I know from doing journey mapping myself, bringing people into a room together who don't necessarily work together day to day because they're just physically not near each other, or there's no reason for them. But they're part of the journey. They don't recognise that some of the stuff they're doing or the tasks they're doing, how it impacts on somebody else.
Absolutely.
And so that can be incredible in terms of insight of how to improve things.
Yeah, and giving the autonomy, for people to say, well, actually, if I give you that at that point of the journey, we can skip. It's like a snake and ladder. You can climb up the ladder and get a little bit further, and create empathy across everybody who's involved in a particular user journey. And then the third step is, once you've got the concept report and the as is to look at the target operating model. So what do we need to do? And that's where the work that the OGCIO is doing around government as a platform and the building block, and what are the tools in our toolbox we could already deploy in this new target operating model. What are the build to share solution we could implement now?
Yes, it's already been built, right?
Yeah, exactly. To make that journey a little bit easier, or a lot easier in some case. So it's a little bit, the process re-engineering is really where the transformation happen. You mentioned
to me that the process re-engineering that reduced the steps. Was it about having a baby?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of results did you see in terms of the process being simpler?
Well, some of the, when we map out having a baby from thinking of having a child to when they start school, we mapped, there was about 40 odd interaction with government at different points for health, education, 40. Housing, registration, income support for mom, support for dad. So different family configurations. So already we were, by mapping those out, we were able to say, well, actually, this one doesn't really need to happen if this information is collected sooner. So already we saw things that have changed in terms of the processes, in the background processes that the end users don't have to do as much step.
Excellent.
So you would see the HSE is doing a lot of work with the Department of Health around the HSE app at the moment, and its focus on maternity services. And the approach they've taken is very much based on that kind of user-centered approach, and having the mom able to get their appointments and much better information in terms of their credential, etc.
Self-service in that, right?
Yeah,
which is people love. They'd actually like to be able to control themselves if they can. Well, look, I have to take one quick break and then I'll come back and I want to ask you a couple of other questions. So this is a break just to tell you a little bit about the awards and the upcoming summit. We'll be back very soon. So the response this year has just blown us away. We've seen record entries. In fact, we have doubled the number of entries compared to 2024, which is really exceptional. And on Taoiseach presenting the trophies to the winners is going to make it even more special. And the event itself is fabulous. And now it's not just a glittering awards, it's much more than that. It's a great place for people to meet one another. In fact, people just like you. And the public sector teams and innovators can really share ideas and find out from each other, both from the finalists, but just generally, what's going on and how they can learn from some of their peers or, in fact, borrow ideas. But the countdown's on. It's just 10 weeks now. And of course, if you're hearing this video a little bit later, it could be less than 10 weeks before we're to the event, which is the 18th of September. So make sure you get your tickets and you can go and get those now before it's too late at digitalgovawards.com. And don't forget, there's also the summit. So why a summit? So the idea is that people come in with big ideas and challenges and they get a chance not just to be spoken at, but actually to have really good dialogue and debate. There's a lot of panel discussion and a lot of audience participation focused in on public sector and how they adapt, I suppose, and take advantage of technology that's coming through. In particular, you can imagine the themes are going to be again on AI and its application within the public sector. But we're also looking separately at infrastructure and how technology is going to help us hopefully to accelerate some of the really ambitious plans Ireland has for its infrastructure. So again, I know everybody says this, but places are limited and we do have an early bird, but that is a limited number of places and it will close definitely on the 18th of July. So make sure you get your tickets and we look forward to welcoming you on the 18th of September in O'Reilly Hall, Belfield, Dublin. So when you were talking to me about the journeys and the life events, immediately you think there's so many different departments involved, right? Because one department needs this piece of information, somebody else is in charge of something else, and so that's a lot of moving parts. So how do you coordinate that? Who owns it? Who's in charge of what? The governance.
On the governance. So the transformation strategy, we have in place two governance structures, the Public Service Leadership Board and the Civil Service Management Board. Those are made by SecGen and CEO of agencies, looking at how we all working together to deliver on that transformation. Everybody is responsible. Normal sign of accountability applies. You are responsible for the services you delivered, but those governance structure are there to look at how the collective is delivering. So those are really important. And underneath those governance structure, we've established a number of working group for each of the pillars of reform, and the strategic working group for Pillar 1, which is co-chaired by my colleague Barry Larry and the Secretary General of the Department of Social Protection, John McKeown, is really trying to coordinating things like getting the Digital Public Service Plan together, the Responsible AI guidelines, and really ensuring that we are all working towards that same vision of integrated services. And then for the life event process itself, for each individual life event, part of the plan is to clarify that governance structure. So we've looked...
this is the one that you're submitting to the government.
We're submitting to government in October or November. So no decision has been taken. So I can't really tell you this is going to be the way to go. But what we're going to advise government is that there is a number of mechanisms that people have that are doing that internationally. I've looked at people like Estonia or Denmark or Italy from very centralized governance in terms of somebody at the center does it all and tell everybody else how it should be done and are accountable and responsible for every element of it, to very, very disperse of saying, well, this is a broad vision and everybody should somehow align, to somewhere in the middle where individual departments that have more responsibility for key item, key services in a specific life event take more of a leadership and governance role for the entire life events. So we're going to put the option to government as part of the plan, and that would be decided on that basis. Our ministers have responsibility for digitalization, but that's really about reforming, coordinating effort, and setting the policy and the vision, which is that plan would be a key element of it.
Okay. So to be decided. But for what you're saying is that you're not necessarily promoting the centralized control. It's kind of more of a hybrid. Is that correct?
I think maybe like the way we were talking earlier, whatever way you cut it, it's very difficult to have any level of silo or total control over everything that is so complex and so dispersed. So really, the governance model should reflect the complexity of what you're trying to deliver. So in my view, not someone can't be in charge of everything. Otherwise, you can't. You're in charge of nothing. So it's about making sure that the vision is right, the tools are there. I'm going to sound like Daniel Pink again. Vision is right, the tools are there, and people have enough autonomy to do the right thing.
Okay.
And the behind the plan is having good collective structure, having good platform for conversation, having good digital tool that we can build to share, whether they're developed through the OGCIO or through someone else. I mean, John McKeown, the DSP has a key role to play because they have MyGov ID as the digital identity behind accessing services. So
I can imagine though that if let's say you and I design with all the different parts of the journey, all the different owners of different parts of the journey, the ideal journey. That's a very deep collaboration, but then things move on. So I presume there has to be revisitation of the life event and how that journey is working. Is that kind of built into the new structure and the way government will operate?
Yes.
The collaboration is actually constant.
Absolutely, because like any change program or project, a lot can go in the planning, but the minute that the delivery happen, new pain point happen, new opportunities present themselves. So the plan is going to be iterative on that basis. Even the life event themselves, when we started and did the public consultation a couple of years ago, there was a list of life events that internationally people were using, and I think there was 10 or 11 life events. And then as we started on that journey, we found that some of those life events appear like responding to extreme weather is become a life event because life happened, and we know that a different type of interaction is required from government. So the life event themselves, the scale of them, what we do within them will constantly change.
And is it somebody who says, okay, look, we need to relook at it? Is there an owner? How do you decide, for example, that is it your department that say we should relook at the life event journeys, or how does that evolve?
Well, the digital public service plan is under the transformation strategy, and that will fall under the governance structure. I've just discussed the Public Service Leadership Board, its strategic working group, the Civil Service Management Board. So the collective discussion of what should and shouldn't be priority will happen there, and then the plan would be put to government for agreements.
We haven't touched about technology at all, which is amazing. But I'm just thinking, what do you believe is going to be the way in which technology will... We have legacy systems, departments of different systems. I know we talked about the skin over legacy system. Talk to me about how you think the technology will roll out, if you like, around the life journeys.
Well, look, maybe I started in the public sector in the early 2000s in one of the local authority doing Dublin City Development Board, which was about integrated public services at the time. Okay. And I know how hard the integration of service and data on the ground is difficult. But what this approach and what technology offers is an opportunity to give that seamless user journey in the front hand while the backend system can be updated and upgraded and developed in the sense that they're more integrated from the get-go. So I wish, when I started in Dublin City, that I had the tool to do that, because by showing what the integration is for the end user and making it really valued and trying it out and testing it and really have the opportunity to get things on the ground before you've done all the bits at the back that is really hard to change, in terms of process and the people, etc., is a huge opportunity. And AI in there has a great opportunity to help us with that. So the level of integration may be light at the start, and then go deeper as we're delivering more for the end user.
Look and feel as if it's completely interoperable will be possible because of new technologies, right?
Absolutely.
And so you know that from the end user's perspective, that it's going to be fairly seamless.
Yeah.
But you don't have to change everything right to the root and branch, right, to enable that to happen. Which, as you say, is the beauty of new technologies that are available, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And try things out, because what level of integration we can think is the correct thing to do might not be when the end user starts using it. So it allows us to iterate a lot better.
And in terms of people with more extreme needs, perhaps people in our country that don't have easy access or maybe have challenges to get through, they were involved in the process, were they, in terms of designing the journeys?
Yeah, so for all the life event that we've been working of across government, we've partnered with the Nimbus Centre down in Cork to help us access.
For those who don't know, what are the Nimbus Centre in Cork?
It's a centre specifically looking at working with end user with additional needs, so people with disability, people that from different socioeconomic background that may have different literacy level, or people that have needs that language need, etc., that may not be what the 80% or 90% of the population needs. So from the start, we've designed, we try to understand their user journey for people with amplified need.
Okay.
The philosophy behind that is that if you manage to meet those amplified needs, you will meet the need of the 80 or 90%. And also digitization is an opportunity. It allows us to redesign, make it better for the majority, but also it allows us to look at how we redeploy the people that are currently working, doing issuing paper for for someone to give to another organization, to really focus on the people in the offline environment a little bit more.
So free them up to give them better service, because they won't be able to do online, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's digitally enabled service. It's trying to digital first, but not digital only. As a government, we have no plan to go digital only. We need to help the people that either can't or do not want to interact digitally.
And just in terms of, for suppliers who might be listening in, and they do, are there big opportunities, you think, to work with government and to really add value in particular areas?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you'll have to talk to my colleague, the CIOs, rather than myself in term. But I know that we've done a lot of work around the GovTech agenda, for example, for even the public sector to understand what are the opportunity out there are. So we had a number of pilots a few years back around, use of AI with the Department of Agriculture for tracking TBs. We also last year looked at innovation procurement partnership to look at how we can develop a building block for the use of Irish and training the large language model on on Irish rather than English, and then translation. So worked with Udorus and the Department of Rural Community and Gaeltacht on that to see how can we help SME to target, because there's nothing in the market at the moment for that. So try to use innovation procurement partnership to tackle those gap in the system. And a colleague from the Office of the Public Procurement were involved in that. So there are a lot of opportunity, both in terms of helping public sector understand new technology and what they can offer, but also to help out in redesigning services. We have a new part of the design action plan for government is to develop a procurement framework for a designer to help public sector get that skill set in. Yes. So we're recruiting it directly, but we also want to make sure we can access those smaller SMEs that may be able to contribute to that design. So that framework is out on advertisement currently. So,
very good. And it's such a skill, isn't it, being able to design for users and really understand how they interact with something.
Oh, absolutely. It's technology, it's skills. There's a lot of opportunity for people to get involved.
Well, I'd be very remiss if I didn't ask you, Marianne. So let's imagine we're citizens in 2030, or in fact, we're public sector servants. What is it going to look like? What are we hoping the transformation that we're thinking of now is going to feel like in 2030?
Well, I hope that if you are a person living in Ireland, that it would be a lot easier to access the public service you need at the time you need it. And that you will be able to go to whether it's a life event portal and to say, well, something is happening to me. What do I do next? And that the government would be able to say, well, these are the options that are available. These are the services that you could be entitled to, and that you will have a much easier way to access those services, even if you were not well versed in the working of government.
Well, that's really interesting, because it's going to lead on to part 2, isn't it? Because we're going to talk about the role that AI must play in that, because AI obviously gives a chance for things to be interactive rather than linear. So you say, okay, in the old version of life journeys or user journeys, we used to look at preempting needs, whereas in fact AI allows you to have a dialogue, isn't it, and pull the information at the top. So look, before we get into that, the first thing I have to say is thank you so much for coming on to part 1 of a really interesting interview and very, very interesting subject matter. And then next we'll talk about the AI guidelines. But for now, huge thank you, Marianne, for coming on to Transform Gov. And before I leave, I have to say thank you very much to the studio team. So that's studio manager Peter Rice, video editor Neil Horner, and sound engineer Lee Brennan, and videographer, which I also think was Lee Brennan today, but it could have been a team effort. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Transform Gov.